This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. H. Rider Haggard. Ayesha, The Return of She. Chapter 17. The Betrothal. Together we descended the multitudinous steps and passed the endless rock-hewn passages till we came to the door of the dwelling of the high priestess and were led through it into a hall beyond. Here Ayesha parted from us, saying that she was outworn, as indeed she seemed to be, with an utter weariness, not of the body but of the spirit, for her delicate form drooped like a rain-laden lily. Her eyes grew dim as those of a person in trance, and her voice came in a soft, sweet whisper, the voice of one speaking in her sleep. "Good bye," she said to us. "Oros will guard you both and lead you to me at the appointed time. Rest you well." So she went, and the priest led us into a beautiful apartment that opened on to a sheltered garden. So overcome were we also by all what we had endured and seen, that we could scarcely speak, much less discuss these marvellous events. "My brain swims," said Leo to Oros. "I desire to sleep." He bowed and conducted us to a chamber where were beds, and on these we flung ourselves down and slept dreamlessly like little children. When we awoke it was afternoon. We rose and bathed, then saying that we wished to be alone, went together into the garden, where even at this altitude, now at the end of August, the air was still mild and pleasant. Behind a rock, by a bed of campanulas and other mountain flowers and ferns, was a bench near to the banks of a little stream, on which we seated ourselves. "What have you to say, Horace?" asked Leo, laying his hand upon my arm. "Say," I answered, "that things have come about most marvellously, that we have dreamed aright and laboured not in vain, that you are the most fortunate of men and should be the most happy." He looked at me somewhat strangely and answered, "Yes, of course she is lovely, is she not? But," and his voice dropped to its lowest whisper, "I wish, Horace, that Ayesha were a little more human, even as human as she was in the caves of Kôr. I don't think she is quite flesh and blood. I felt it when she kissed me, if you can call it a kiss, for she barely touched my hair. Indeed, how can she be who changed thus in an hour? Flesh and blood are not born of flame, Horace." "Are you sure that she was so born?" I asked. "Like the vision on the fire, may not that hideous shape have been but an illusion of our minds? May she not be still the same Ayesha whom we knew in Kôr, not reborn, but wafted hither by some mysterious agency?" "Perhaps, Horace. We do not know. I think that we shall never know. But I admit that to me the thing is terrifying. I am drawn to her by an infinite attraction. Her eyes set my blood on fire, the touch of her hand is as that of a wand of madness laid upon my brain. And yet between us there is some wall, invisible, still present. Or perhaps it is only fancy. But Horace, I think that she is afraid of Atene. Why? In the old days the Khania would have been dead and forgotten in an hour. You remember Ustane?" "Perhaps she may have grown more gentle, Leo, who like ourselves has learned hard lessons." "Yes," he answered, "I hope that it is so. At any rate she has grown more divine. Only, Horace, what kind of a husband shall I be for that bright being, if ever I get so far?" "Why should you not get so far?" I asked angrily, for his words jarred upon my tense nerves. "I don't know," he answered, "but on general principles do you think that such a fortune would be allowed to a man? Also, What did Atene mean when she said that man and spirit cannot mate, and other things?" "She meant that she hoped they could not, I imagine. And, Leo, it is useless to trouble yourself with forebodings that are more fitted to my years than yours, and probably are based on nothing. Be a philosopher, Leo. You have striven by wonderful ways such as are unknown in the history of the world. You have attained. Take the goods the gods provide you, the glory, the love, and the power, and let the future look to itself." Before he could answer, Oros appeared from round the rock, and bowing with more than his usual humility to Leo, said that the Hesea desired our presence at a service in the Sanctuary. Rejoiced at the prospect of seeing her again before he had hoped to do so, Leo sprang up, and we accompanied him back to our apartment. Here priests were waiting, who somewhat against his will trimmed his hair and beard, and would have done the same for me had I not refused their offices. Then they placed gold embroidered sandals on our feet and wrapped Leo in a magnificent white robe, also richly worked with gold and purple, a somewhat similar robe, but of less ornate design, being given to me. Lastly, a silver sceptre was thrust into his hand, and into mine a plain wand. This sceptre was shaped like a crook, and the sight of it gave me some clue to the nature of the forthcoming ceremony. "The crook of Osiris," I whispered to Leo. "Look here," he answered, "I don't want to impersonate any Egyptian god, or to be mixed up in their heathen idolatries. In fact, I won't." "Better go through with it," I suggested. "Probably it is only something symbolical." But Leo, who, notwithstanding the strange circumstances connected with his life, retained the religious principles in which I had educated him very strongly indeed, refused to move an inch until the nature of this service was made clear to him. Indeed, he expressed himself upon the subject with vigour to Oros. At first the priest seemed puzzled what to do, then explained that the forthcoming ceremony was one of betrothal. On learning this, Leo raised no further objections, asking only with some nervousness whether the Khania would be present. Oros answered "No," as she had already departed to Kaloon, vowing war and vengeance. Then we were led through long passages, till finally we emerged into the gallery immediately in front of the great wooden doors of the apse. At our approach these swung open and we entered it, Oros going first, then Leo, then myself, and following us the procession of attendant priests. As soon as our eyes became accustomed to the dazzling glare of the flaming pillars, we saw that some great rite was in progress in the temple. For in front of the divine statue of Motherhood, white robed and arranged in serried ranks, stood the company of the priests to the number of over 200, and behind these the company of the priestesses. Facing this congregation, and a little in advance of the two pillars of fire that flared on either side of the shrine, Ayesha herself was seated in a raised chair so that she could be seen of all, while to her right stood a similar chair, of which I could guess the purpose. She was unveiled and gorgeously apparelled, though save for the white beneath her robes were those of a queen rather than of a priestess. About her radiant brow ran a narrow band of gold, whence rose the head of a hooded asp cut out of a single crimson jewel, beneath which in endless profusion the glorious waving hair flowed down and around, hiding even the folds of her purple cloak. This cloak, opening in front, revealed an under tunic of white silk, cut low upon her bosom and kept in place by a golden girdle, a double headed snake, so like to that which she had worn in Kôr that it might have been the same. Her naked arms were bare of ornaments, and in her right hand she held the jewelled sistrum set with its gems and bells. No empress could have looked more royal, and no woman was ever half so lovely, for to Ayesha's human beauty was added a spiritual glory, her heritage alone. Seeing her we could see naught else. The rhythmic movement of the bodies of the worshippers, the rolling grandeur of their chant of welcome echoed from the mighty roof, the fearful torch